If you've popped into any of the local farmers markets this year, you've supported nearby farms and farmers working very hard to put food on the table. That also includes many tables of your favorite restaurants, where fork-to-table dining is not only encouraged, but a definitive part of the experience. It's thanks to farmers like Alex Stewart of Thornfield Farm, who's here today to share more about how hard he works for your favorite meals. Hi, Alex.
Hey, how's it going, Liz?
Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. We had a great article in our November-December dining issue about farming and how hard you guys truly work year-round to make sure that your produce is featured on many local restaurant tables. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And thank you, of course, to Susanna for being our interview person who was in the photos and everything. I know she can't be here today, but we so appreciated her time. And
we're partners in life and in farming, and she has fully deputized me to speak on her behalf.
Excellent. Well,
she is the better to be in the pictures in general. She's the more photogenic of the farmers.
Wow.
So we always appreciate that.
We appreciate her time and her wisdom that she shared in the article, which, of course, you can see over on our website. But as for today, now I want to talk about, first of all, your background. Like, how did you guys find yourself in this position today at Thornfield?
So Susanna grew up on a farm, and actually the property that our farm operation is on now is her family farm.
Cool.
So our kids are the fourth generation in her family growing up there.
That is so awesome.
And her parents moved there full-time in the 70s to start a dairy operation. Her dad was like going to be a lawyer, and her mom was going to be a teacher. And her mom actually has had a good career in education, and she's done a whole lot of stuff too. But they've both been farmers for 50 or 60 years now. They still run a beef cattle herd on much of the land of the farm.
Man, you guys are busy.
Yeah.
Like the whole family, really.
They like it busy.
That's awesome.
I'm the only lazy one, but I can kind of fix
I know
them.
that's not true. I know for a fact that's not true. I see you every Saturday at the market.
Yeah. So Sue's got back. She kind of always had the bug to move back to the farm, but we actually met when we were both living in D.C. around 2009, 2010. I was a struggling musician, and she was working for as a legislative consultant and like an education advocate for nonprofits in DC.
Wow.
So we met back then, and we're dating, and then ended up going our separate ways. She to San Francisco and I to New York City, and then we swirled around a bit. But she always had it in her head to go back and work on the family farm in some capacity. Her parents were either in the process of ultimately or had recently given up dairy farming. The economics of it for small farmers has been getting worse and worse over our lifetimes. And I mean, basically over her parents' careers, it got harder and harder. So they gave up the dairy herd sometime in the first decade of the 2000s. But Sue's always had this dream to go back and live on the farm full time and make something work. And so largely thanks to the farm to table movement, and farmers market in general, and like the whole locavore shifting of focus of where people get their food and how they know the people who make their food, she kind of started thinking about this new business model that's a diversified, primarily vegetable operation with a focus on serving local markets and, anchored in local food serving restaurants and the whole like farm to table movement.
Man, what a career you've both had, but that's wild. I love that she gets to come home to continue the legacy that's been built. That's
it was a considerable pay cut, but she is loving it.
She's not in DC anymore either.
Exactly. Yeah. The cost of living's good. It's true.
Man, cool. So you mentioned a diverse range of things that you offer, produce, and of course in the past has been dairy. But I see at your table you've got veggies, you've got meats, and of course you've got flowers. Susanna's flowers are unbelievably gorgeous. I'm curious about, how you cultivate all these varieties, what that means to you guys, how hard you must work to have so many options.
There are always a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah.
So my main day-to-day work is more on the animal side of things. So we have about 100 laying chickens and 50 lambs right now, 50 sheep in the flock, about 2/3 are lambs. And we kind of separate out some of the beef cattle from Susan's parents' herd, and we feed them ourselves, kind of a special diet of integrated grain ration, and keep them on the pastures to manage the pastures better. And so that aspect is my bailiwick, and that uses a different kind of the topography. So the farm property is super hilly. There's a lot of steep land, and there's a lot of woods. There's a lot of brambles, and Thornfield is a very apt name for a lot of the fields. How they get quickly. But so managing the vegetables and the meat together, the veggies and flowers and meat, allows us to use every bit of the farm.
Yeah.
to kind of make some kind of productive
No
food
wasted space.
aspect.
That's awesome.
That said, we do have a lot of woods, and kind of what we pride ourselves on in large part too is allowing these woods that are now 50 to 100 years old that had been in agricultural land in centuries past to return to a real native, diverse, big old hardwood forest.
Yeah,
so
let them breathe.
We turn more onto that, exactly. But having the meat around the edges is really helpful to be able to use more of the non-woodland in food production. The vegetable and flower diversity it's both like climatologically helpful because it lends to the resilience. Like if, for example, this fall we had a really bad broccoli year, in part because of a pair of horrible groundhogs against whom we have sworn vengeance, but have yet to catch. But largely because the climate here is really challenging to grow those kind of cold crops. Like whereas Bent Mountain is a lot better because they have fairly cooler summers. Up where we are in Botetourt, the distance between the last super hot days of the early fall and the first frost in the autumn is often very short window. Similarly, between the last frost of the spring and when it starts getting really hot in the summer is a short window. So those shoulders can be really difficult to grow crops like cauliflower and broccoli, which really like a long, warm but not hot, cool but not cold season to grow in.
That's so interesting. Actually, so we had Treehouse Tavern in our first segment, and they literally talked about how the area where they are at Bent Mountain is cooler. It's like 15 degrees cooler.
Oh, yeah.
And I did not realize that there's such a huge difference in the temperature just right down the street.
So we source a lot of our like inputs, like the organic fertilizers that we use and the different kind of things that we mix up in our soils from Seven Springs, which is a really like a venerable old CSA farm, and they're also like an organic supply logistics place, and they're up on Bent Mountain in Czech. So every time I get to go up there to get a ton of stuff in the summer, I like hit the top of the switchbacks on 221 and just roll down the window.
Yeah, let your hair fly. Let your beard fly, I guess, in your case. Oh man, that's cool.
Yeah, but so the diversity of the crops is really helpful because we're more resilient to climate change issues as well as just the challenges of the climate that have always been around here, because having all these different crops, it's rare that it's a bad year for everything. So this was a really bad fall for broccoli, but it was also the best year we've ever had for carrots in the fall. So that kind of diversity of what we grow really helps a lot with
that's so interesting. And I mean, the thing is, like, I've had your broccoli, like the real deal broccoli in the summer, and I can't go back to like
that's how we get you
grocery store deal. Exactly, because I dream of that real deal, like that delicious, flavorful broccoli. All year round. I'm like, okay, give me them 2 weeks. I can't wait.
Well, thank you. And I assure the listener she paid in full for the broccoli. That was not how we got this.
Exactly. But they're my favorite vegetable.
But that gets at the heart of the farm to table movement too. I mean, there are a lot of genuinely good aspects to the business model in terms of reducing your carbon footprint. It's a better way to eat for climate change. But at the end of the day, it's really, the food just tastes so much better. And like, becoming, getting into this as part of, idealistic trying to change the world, we've really come around to being passionate about the quality of the food and what a difference it makes to be eating with the seasons and following what's in season, and just like how much better your food tastes, and particularly the vegetables, which tend to be better for you and better for the world.
It's amazing.
It's just like
the difference.
So it's been eye-opening for me to have moved in here, started the second year of the operation. But
quick, did you ever see yourself like in this lifestyle before? Like, is this something that you just sort of stumbled into and like,
no,
great, awesome?
I totally thought I was going to be an organic farmer when I was like a Brooklyn hipster. But I was radically misinformed about what it was like to be an organic farmer. So yes, I thought I would be a farmer, but I had no idea what I was talking about when I was imagining it. And I remember I visited Susanna for the first time, like in the summer of her first season. And I saw like this sort of trail going up the steep hillside. And I said, oh, like I can just imagine you like with a hoe over your shoulder walking up that. And she's like, no, that's the irrigation line. I drive the truck around the driveway. Like the hose are in the back of the truck. It's not like that at all. So it was a fun... It's been a long road of being disabused of my notions of what it's like.
She's beating at all the stereotypes. And Well, no, so what does a typical day look like for you? Like, where it's about, I don't know, 1:30, and how long have you been up already? Like, do you get up with chickens?
I don't get up with the chickens. The chickens can wait until
I was about to say, but you have small babies too.
We do, exactly.
So
I get up with the almost 2-year-old. She woke us up at 5:45 today. Which this time of year we actually we get a little bit later. Like the farm crew starts at 8 in the fall.
Yeah.
And so we're we're up to get the kids out for school and to get up there. But in the summertime, work starts at 7:30. All the computer work has to be done before then. So it's a very
Oh yeah, I mean, you guys are like out there all day long.
the
Just
chickens get an earlier breakfast in the summertime. We'll say that.
man, that's yeah, because you probably have some pretty long days out there. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's interesting. The paperwork has to be done before. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
gotta rip that Band-Aid off real
Before
quick.
the sun
and-
comes up.
Yeah.
And Susanna deserves most of the credit for that too. Usually I'm screwing around on the internet while she's doing that.
Aren't we all? So, readers were talking. They learned about the November-December feature. How many local restaurants are highlighting your farm's produce, and other farms, of course, too, on their menus. And so you've touched on how that farm-to-table connection impacts your business, of course, as well as the dining experience. And Nate Sloan from Bloom is on our second segment earlier and talking about the farms that he works with. And you've hit the nail on the head, which is the food tastes better when it's directly from the source. Like, it's amazing how different that is.
Yeah, it's the freshness. And I mean, the way Nate actually, he grew up farming too.
Yeah.
So he's like been really cool to work with and is a super knowledgeable customer of ours as a chef. But I think the only way you're going to get peak freshness is by anticipating and planning for the season and also rolling with the punches the way that the season changes.
Yeah, what
But-
happens when you plant on brown broccoli and then it doesn't pop up?
Exactly.
Like, yeah,
That we leave that to him.
Yeah.
We just,
that's his problem.
but I think there is no way for your food to taste better than shortening the amount of time between when it is harvested and when you eat it.
Yeah.
And changing your diet and your cooking with the seasons is just a great way to it's a great way to live.
Yeah, it keeps it interesting too.
Keeps it-
And you
yeah.
know how I know it's great from the source? Because every time I see you guys on your Instagram, I see those babies picking those blueberries right off and just, I'm lucky I get any
Well,
blueberries.
right now it's turnips.
I love that they eat turnips though.
Oh yeah, the Hockerai turnips are like
Like-
they're kid bait. They're perfect.
But
they're,
that's amazing. Like, I don't think I ever touched a turnip when I was a kid.
I didn't- aside from Super Mario Brothers, I don't think I ever saw one.
Exactly. But that's so cool that they get that experience and their point of view
Yeah,
too.
no. The trouble with that is that they almost categorically refuse to eat vegetables at meal times because
They're full up for the day for picking them all themselves. That's hysterical. But I love that they get that experience. And of course, you guys get to share that. And like you said, another generation
Yeah.
understanding the industry. Is
Well,
so important.
raising a family on the farm is a enormous consolation and
Yeah.
driver for us wanting to do it. I mean, being able to have them run free on the farm,
Mm-hmm.
have the healthy food right out of the ground. It's such an amazing privilege that we have, and like we're really lucky to live the way we do.
Yeah.
And it's something we're grateful for every day.
Do they
Yeah.
name the chickens? Do they have pet names for everybody?
I don't let
Or,
them
you
name
know,
the
that's
chickens.
fair. That's probably
We name the sheep
understandable.
that stay year to year.
Yeah.
We try to keep them at arm's length. It's remarkable to see their kind of relationship with meat eating because they eat meat and they have known from the cradle that the animals that we raise are animals that we eat.
Right.
So it's been cool to, in addition to having the healthy vegetables out of the field, to know that they kind of are building this ethical and thoughtful
Yeah, yeah.
relationship with
No, that's
the
great.
meat that they eat. Yeah.
And so Nate and I talked about this too. He and I both. Him of course previously was the chef at Local Roots, and I got my start waiting tables there, and so
Oh,
we
no
were
way.
working together. So that's how I have known him for 1,000 years. And so I feel like he really influenced my experience in understanding farm to table and the soul, values that Diane Elliott,
Oh, yeah.
it's organic, it's local, it's ethical, it's sustainable, it's all these things that kind of culminate into this great experience on a
Yeah.
plate. Like, that's really amazing. And I don't think I assume I would have stumbled upon it at some point, but like, it's because of Local Roots and my experience with Nate that really taught me what that meant.
Yeah. Well, and Local Roots is still going, and
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
definitely like the kind of OG local.
Oh yeah.
food
You think farm to
restaurant.
table, and they're one of the first.
They were like
yeah. Mm-hmm.
first, early in the first wave of the movement, and have been really an anchor for a lot of small farmers that we've known. I mean,
Yeah. Diane's your biggest cheerleader. She's any farmer's biggest cheerleader, I swear. Like,
but we're her favorite farm. You can ask her.
yeah, absolutely, of course. So you'd mentioned, challenges in terms of climate and things like that. And so I'm curious about other challenges that maybe you faced, whether it's in the region, specifically, or just as a whole, technology or anything like that maybe you've had to implement to get around those challenges.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest challenge is always the weather.
Yeah.
And,
I assumed that was the biggest one, but I didn't
yeah.
want to. Yeah.
And I always say a good farmer can always complain about the weather.
Well,
But
any time of the day, huh? there are some sort of
dirt technologies that we employ for that. So we do a lot of covering of the winter crops. So we have unheated high tunnels are kind of, I mean, I think this is technically a technology, but we use these plastic greenhouses. We have a small propagation house that we actually heat for the seedlings. And that's the only thing we have like I think it's 30 by, well, I can't remember exactly what the square footage is. It's a far smaller footprint. And we have 2 propane tanks, and that's the only like powered heating that we have on the whole farm. But we're able to keep producing stuff all winter with these unheated greenhouses that have a higher ceiling and a lot more of a square footage inside. And so we have 3 permanent ones. And Susanna actually learned about these things we call caterpillar tunnels, which are a mobile greenhouse. And we order a bunch of square steel piping and then bend it ourselves with a jerry-rigged plywood bending machine that her father figured out years ago. And we got this plan online from like farmers in Kansas or Wyoming or somewhere in the West that has really intense winds. So we knew that it would be able to stand up because we have considerable winds, but compared to those guys, not so bad. So we like pound rebar on the ground and then fit these pipes over them and have like a rigging system with the plastic. So basically at this point we can put up or take down one of these cat tunnels in about a half day of work with a couple of the farm hands who are all who are amazingly skilled now at this and a lot of other things. So that's enabled us to be able to keep crops going in the winter. The freezing is difficult to manage, but it's actually the daylight getting shorter that makes stuff stop growing.
Yeah.
So
it's not just us that get seasonal depression.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the vegetables too, I guess.
Yeah, well, they call it the Persephone effect. So it's a lot nicer name than seasonal depression. It's essentially a good way to look at it. But if we get them up to size this time of year, then they'll basically be in stasis all winter.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we can harvest off of them as we need to, which I don't want to apply that metaphor any further.
But it's interesting because, farming's, the cornerstone foundation of our eating habits from the beginning of time, and so to think that how far some of this tech or evolution has come, that yes, you're still using the old ways that, your ancestors used, but now you have to incorporate other things because of climate change, because of the soil or whatever.
But also, and I mean, we're all for limiting the global production of plastic, but like having things like greenhouse plastic available. They're not cheap, but like comparatively affordable as opposed to like a glass greenhouse is amazingly helpful for that kind of thing too. Yeah. So putting some of this new material into the old ways it's been a cool, and it's a really cool thing to learn about. Just
sort of, do you think if you picked up like Susanna's grandparents, and brought them into this stage and they're like, what is it? What is that? What is that? Like, that's so cool. Or why would you use that? Why wouldn't you just do, the old school way? Like, it's kind of interesting to think.
Like, you have a tractor in the barn. Why are you pulling this stuff by hand? What are you thinking? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I would hope that, a lot of farmers are excited about that kind of new spin on things and, finding new avenues of improving their work and, working smarter, not harder.
I think so. Yeah. And Suze's dad is a brilliant guy, and
he's jerry rigging tools.
Well, but they've been eccentric farming for decades and decades, and so he's always reading new stuff like that. So we definitely have like an intergenerational pipeline of new ideas.
But that's awesome because I mean, imagine if you didn't, like, where would you be? Like, so that's exciting that you're into the new evolution of things.
It's great. He's always we've always called him the silent partner in the farm.
Yeah. Well,
John Thornton, I'm calling you out. But
as the parents tend to or want to do occasionally, be a silent partner.
Well, but before we get off technology I should say we've had a lot of ups and downs with software because we have this really big farm share program, and so we have a platform called Farmigo that we use for that we're really happy with, and that's been an enormous cornerstone of the foundation of the business. Like the farm share, our members are amazing community, and like their support is really how we get through year to year. But recently Susanna's been using a new software with like a flower cooperative that she's co-founded. So this is this way we can have members of the co-op, so different vendors setting their availability, and it all goes into the same pool of money, which shares the cost of doing the e-commerce. But also because we can get more producers and more flowers, we can serve bigger businesses and bigger designers. So we can sell consistently to florists and to wedding designers and that kind of thing in a way that we as an individual flower farm never could do.
Man.
And flowers are something, I mean, we love growing food and we'll always grow some food, but we're pivoting more and more to flowers just because it's something.
I mean, they're gorgeous.
They're beautiful and like per per acre, they're more profitable, but more than that, there's something Suze is really passionate about.
And she puts the bouquets together herself, the ones that I see occasionally. Like they're, I don't know how you have an eye for that. It's just so beautiful. The colors and like the arrangement itself.
She is really
She's
talented.
got a great eye.
Yeah, I think so too. And she, in part, that's grown up as well. Her mom has always had flowers in the garden, and they've always had flowers in the house, and it's something that she cares a lot about too.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so in thinking about the technology, I'm laughing in my head because people don't necessarily always use cash at the markets, and so people are always asking for singles and stuff. And so you're talking about the co-op, the money all goes into one pot. You're like, man.
Oh yeah, you've saved my butt so many times with your singles.
Well, Jason gets all the singles from the tipping, and then we just bring it back to you guys the next week. So
instead, there's farm to table, and then there's busker to farmer.
Yeah, that's Jason Long story. Yeah, busker to table. But in thinking about all the markets that you do, and then you're doing Leap markets on Tuesdays and things like that. You're really out in the community creating connection with folks. I have seen you hold full conversations with people who are, waiting in line for their produce because you know them so well and you know them by first name. And that's not like easy to do, you're already working on the farm all day hard, and then you got to go memorize all these people's names on a Saturday morning. But like you're really cultivating community, which is so important.
Their stories better than their names, I should say. If everyone quizzed me on their name, I'd be in real trouble. But I do. It's been really wonderful getting to know people.
I have to imagine that's part of the reason the line wraps around half the market every Saturday because they just want to come say hi to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it definitely slows down the line with me chatting with everybody.
It's a Saturday morning at the farmer's market. Why are you in a rush?
Well, that's definitely
hang out,
my philosophy.
enjoy your time.
Thank you. Yeah, it can be kind of lonely work. We have a great community on the farm with the family and with the farm hands, but we're fairly isolated up there, and so it's great to be able to have the opportunity to just talk to a bunch of people, and it's convenient for me that they all come up to the table because I can get a lot more done.
Yeah, is that the easy part? Like just hanging out, talking to people, and like handing out the produce that you've been working so hard to cultivate.
I do most of it, and I think it's the easy part.
Yeah.
But Susanna, who does most of the real farming, thinks that mine is the hard part. So it's a question of taste.
Well, that's
and
a nice
talent,
partnership then.
Exactly.
That balances out well. Well, and so what other kind of events or kind of community activities are you doing? Because I know I see you on Saturdays, but then Leap does Tuesday markets and things like that.
Yeah. We don't do Leap's Tuesday market, but I'm glad you brought up Leap because that's the local environmental agriculture project, and Suze started selling at the Grandin Market, which is the farmers market that started that nonprofit, I guess 20 years ago now.
Yeah, already.
This is going to be Suze's 10th season coming up next year selling there. Nice. But so because she started at that market, our farm business has always been beholden to Leap for the community organizing that they do and kind of the services that they provide to farmers. And they have an incredibly extensive diversity of programs that they use to support farmers, but also to build community in Roanoke City and to get that food to people who need it and to educate about healthy food and about local food and also to provide it. So for us, a great thing that Leap does is make it super simple to donate food because the nature of farming, even though we're a very small business and we're very versatile, there's always some food left over. And when you're selling fresh produce, because of the ticking clock, of course, you have to do something with it. And so they have a lot of partnerships with other community organizations that have been great. The Hope Center leaps to mind. They're a great place that we work with directly and through Leap that really helps us to get a lot of food out in the community. Yeah.
Huge shout out to Connie and the entire team who work so hard. And like you said, they're out there trying to solve food desert problems in the neighborhood, which, some listeners, maybe you don't even know we have food deserts in the region, but we do. And Connie and other organizations are working as hard as they can to make sure to provide where it's missing.
Yeah.
So
Connie also manages the Grandin Market. We love you, Connie.
Yeah, we do.
You're
the best, on the
Connie.
YouTube. We love you, Connie.
I do. And I actually worked for Leap for a couple of years doing the mobile market too, which is a super cool program.
Yeah.
So they help us donate food and they also buy extra food from us for their program. So we're able to sell into their CSA program and into their into the mobile market and their direct sales like that. So Leap is such a cool organization and they're getting bigger and cooler every year. They have
I feel like they're doing more and more.
Patterson. Yeah. So we love them.
Yeah, we're grateful to them as well. And of course, they're helping bring everybody together so that you guys get to meet other farmers and other organizations who are doing stuff. So it's not just about selling the produce.
Yeah, well, and you were talking about socializing with the customers, which I love doing and is great. But we also meet so many farmers at the farmers market, just like all these other vendors over the 10 years we've been doing it. We've met so many different people doing so many different, like growing and producing so many different kinds of food in so many different ways. And it's been super rad to get to meet other farmers and have
it's exciting.
Our kind of social group there. Like that.
And it must be exciting to see new farms or new vendors kind of coming up and learning and maybe hoping to learn from you, asking questions. Tara over at Rabbit Head Farms I'm obsessed with her chicken. Like she's in the article for farming and like I need to bring her in too because like I just love chatting with her about the processes that she does. And, she's raising kids too in this whole thing. And like, how do you guys do that? Like, how do you don't sleep, I guess.
One day at a time.
Oh my God. Yeah. I guess that's the best philosophy to take it.
But it is, it's a great way to raise kids. If you like the free range is a lot more, the free range child ideal is a lot easier to attain when you're doing
that's the headline of this, by the way, free range children. Cool. Well, thank you. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you want to? My gosh.
I could go all day.
I know we could.
We should we were going to do a 3-hour podcast. It's just me complaining.
Deal. Okay. Yeah. But the weather probably.
Mostly the weather.
Cool. Alex, thank you so much for your time on Print Podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. And, so just again, thank you to Alex. Thank you to Susanna. Thank you to all the farmers that are working so hard. Thornfield Farm and all the others, not only from being on the podcast today, but sharing more about the farm, the hard work, your incredible heart that goes into every product that you're putting out, not on the restaurants' tables too, but also on my table, local dining experiences would not be the same without you guys. So
thank you.
I'm thanking you from the region as a whole.
I want to thank Fortunato, Stock, River and Rail, Local Roots, and Bloom. Who am I forget? Those are the main ones.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thank you to those restaurants for supporting the farming industry. We appreciate it. You can learn more about Thornfield Farm as well as several other local farms serving up the goods at your favorite local restaurants along with your own table at home and so much more in our latest issue. It's on newsstands now and you can always read more over at theroanoker.com.